Okay. Hopefully that fixes itself. Um, yeah.
Testing one, two, three. Testing.
Yeah, that definitely fixed it. Yeah, for some reason the internet was acting up like really crazy. Um,
So it's working now?
yeah, we're good now. All right, you're good to continue.
Okay, let me recollect my thoughts. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I was in this guy's house doing drugs and or alcohol, and then I met my the mother of my children, and I had to kick all these people out of a house that we moved into recently and start trying to, support the mother of my children and get ready for a baby that's on the way. And I was still drinking heavily on a regular basis, but I was still able to take care of her to some extent or another. She also had to, watch me go through what I was going through. And we eventually moved into our first house that we owned um, in another city that was south of us. And for a time, everything was working out okay. I mean, I was still drinking heavily, and there were a couple instances where I got into physical altercations with some of her family members, particularly her brother, who I do not like, even to this day. And then, you know, uh, back in 2015, there was an incident where I mixed two liquors and some weed and blacked out. And I was so drunk. She said something to me that set me off. I don't even remember what it was. But the next thing, I was in a full blind rage. And I was chasing her all over the house. I think I broke down a door because she said she was going to kill herself. So I broke down the door and chased her out into the yard. And then I got some charges for my actions and was taken to jail. This is the first time that I got onto probation. But first, I had to spend 6 months in county. And because of my altercation with a police officer, they had me in a special status in the county to where I could be around no other inmates. So I was basically in a cell by myself, which looking back on it kind of worked out to my advantage because I don't know if I would have gotten along with other inmates well, probably would have gotten my ass beat. So it worked out for better or worse. Got out of jail, was on probation, was in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and going to meetings, but I wasn't actively looking for a sponsor or doing the steps. So it didn't last very long until I found alcohol once again. And then I was drinking for several years again. My memory is very sporadic and sparse of what happened. I mean, I can remember bits and pieces of like going to places like Busch Gardens and being heavily intoxicated and, just kind of making an ass out of myself, which I typically did. Then in 2018, I went into a rehab facility, which my friend over here knows all too well. Um, there, I wasn't ready. I wasn't willing. So I felt like I was being forced into it. So I went with the program as to the best of my ability, but once they gave me a little more freedom, I was sneaking alcohol onto property, getting drunk, having sex on property, and they eventually caught me. And then they put more restrictions in and took away some of my freedoms. And that lasted about a year to a year and a couple months being in that rehab. Got out. I think I kept about a year to a year and a half sober on my own. Before then, I started picking up the drink again because I was working at this job, this restaurant job. And, I saw other people, what I thought was them enjoying alcohol with impunity. And that made me a little jealous. So I wanted to experiment with alcohol again. And I did. And it wasn't long before, like it started picking up rapidly. Because at this job, I remember my daily routine was after a while, I would wake up early in the morning, like 3 or 5 a.m., between 3 or 5 a.m., with the shakes, need to down a good amount of alcohol just to settle my nerves, try to go back to sleep. My alarm goes off at 6 a.m., got to put the kids on the bus and take care of their needs. And then I would take like a fourth of a big bottle. That's like a fourth of a 1.75 liter in the morning. And then, have like 8 to 10 dabs of weed just to steady my nerves enough to be able to work through the day at work without getting the jitters or the shakes. And I'd have to drive to work with one eye open just to be able to see straight. Thank God it wasn't that long of a drive. I mean, it was right down the road from where I lived. But, you know, it's just pure insanity that I thought this was normal. But I still continued to do it up until there was a incident where one day I was so stressed out and just couldn't take it anymore. I proceeded to try and run away as fast as I could from the job place. And I slipped in the parking lot, flew like 3 or 4 feet in the air, and then landed on the hard gravel and just tore up my legs and arms, and then hobbled to my car. And while a coworker was watching too, I looked back and saw the look on her face. And I just didn't want to go back to the workplace anymore. I was like too embarrassed, too ashamed. So I just went home and nursed my wounds with more alcohol. And then this went on for several months up until I had my next incident with the mother of my children. We got into an argument again. And she was sick of my shit, so she kicked me where, I had a fleshy open wound in my leg and I just saw red afterwards, and then started another brawl between me, her, and then her mother got involved trying to call the police. And if it wasn't for a friend doing a wellness check because of their concerns, the police probably would have never showed up. But nowadays, I'm glad they did because it set in motion a series of events that led me to where I am now. So 2 days later, the cops show up, knock on the door, see the injury marks on the mother of my children and her mom, come into the bedroom and see me all lit up, just laying there. And I go to jail. And it wasn't long before I tried to check myself into a sober living near where I was staying. And, I thought that this time was going to be different, but I still wasn't willing to put in all the effort. I had reserves. I wanted to do things my way and pick and choose what I had to be honest about. And it doesn't work like that. So it wasn't long before, I was doing things like I thought I was comfortable with my sobriety. Like I thought I had this, which is also dangerous to think. And I went to my mom's house alone and was supposed to be cleaning it up for her. And I discovered she had a bottle of absinthe and a bottle of vodka there. And I proceeded to first tried some controlled drinking, thinking I could control it. But then next thing I know, I go down there one day and I finish the whole bottle of absinthe. Don't remember a lick of what happened next. I apparently drove back to the sober living. I'm glad I just didn't hurt anyone that I know of. And all I remember next is that the house manager there saying, "You can't come in like this. You got to go to detox." And I went to detox, which detox in a facility is much better than doing it on your own. I do not recommend doing it on your own. But that wasn't the first, or that wasn't the last time I'd go to detox, or the last time I'd end up in the hospital either. Because I may have to backtrack a little bit, but in total, I've been to the hospital 3 times with pancreatitis in my short lifetime. Um, and I've been to detox 4 or 5 times, 3 of them in the same year. And, like they allowed me to come back to that program and finish there for the time being. Because while I was backtracking to when I was in rehab in 2018, the mother of my children caught some charges that she was dealing with. And now it was finally coming to a head that we were going to deal with the consequences for those actions. So I had to be released from the sober living in order to take care of my children on my own, which I was nervous about doing because I hadn't been successful doing it with another parent. So, how the hell was I supposed to do it on my own? But, a lot of people had a lot of faith in me and a lot of confidence that this time would be different. And for a short time after the mother of my children went to prison for her actions, that it was working. I was taking care of the kids on my own. It was very stressful and very overwhelming, but it was working. And I was going to school for auto mechanics, and I was loving what I was doing. But being in the school environment, seeing all these young kids smoking weed, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm making too big a deal of this. Maybe I can smoke weed, just weed, and not drink, and I'll be okay. That didn't last long because spring break rolled around later the next year. And I was like, you know what would make this even better? A little bit of alcohol. So I started drinking again. And then I started going to school high and drunk and having some in the car for lunchtime. Instead of eating, I would just, go to the car and down a couple of gulps of vodka out of a thermos and then go back to class. And this happened for like about 2 weeks after spring break. Then I just stopped going because I didn't want to go anymore. I lost all interest, just was full of fear and depressed and just didn't want to go on anymore. And my medication wasn't working because I was consuming alcohol, which so I was having dark, intrusive thoughts. And I think my mom came down to stay with me because she was worried about me because I wasn't answering my phone. or no, my sister noticed that I wasn't answering my phone, and she was like, "Mom, you need to go check on your son because he's not answering his phone." So she came over and she started living with me, trying to help me, get back on the right track. I went to detox. And then when she left, because she had to go back to our home state for a little while, she was in between states. That's when I had the one detox where I was too embarrassed to go back to a detox facility or let anyone know that I was using again, that I tried to do it on my own at home. And that was awful. I don't recommend that. I mean, just the amount of puking and dry heaving and the sweats and the shakes. I'm lucky to be alive. Um, then, a little later on, some events happened to where I got involved with another girl because the mother of my children was in prison, and I thought, well, I need to fill a void, and this makes sense right now, so why not? And I eventually scared her off because I saw her drinking with impunity, and I was like, you know what? I want that too. And my alcohol and or drug use escalated, and she got to see firsthand what I look like at my worst, which scared her away because she had dealt with a mother who was in the program since she was little, in and out of the program. So she was like, I'm not going to deal with another person doing that. So I ruined that relationship, and then I felt guilty and ashamed of myself even more. And for a good amount of time, it just spiraled out of control. And then, when I tried to get away from it all and think maybe a change of location will help if I'm surrounded by my family and they can keep an eye on me better, which it didn't because I was still sneaking around and lying and trying to control my usage behind their backs. So I went back to my home state for a little bit and hung out with them and then, one of my sisters found evidence of me using while I was away from the house, my mother's house, and she like confronted me about it and I lied to her face. I denied it. And she was very upset. And then, I was still smoking weed. So I was just, well, if I can't have the other stuff, then I'll just use more weed to the point of where I was basically a vegetable like all the time. Like you couldn't have a conversation with me. You couldn't look me in the eyes because I would look away and I would just sit on the couch doing nothing. Kids running around me that I should be taking care of. When they asked me for something, I'd be like, "What? What do you need?" I was very unresponsive, very out of it. And, eventually, this is all leading up to a moment. Eventually, I tried on my own because I earnestly wanted to stop. I tried to stop on my own. And I realized after a certain amount of time, about 30 days of trying to white knuckle it on my own, that I cannot do this on my own. I think I actually might have a problem. What do I do about it now? And I took one look in the mirror and I was like, I don't like what I'm seeing right now. This intoxicated, high version of apparently myself, I don't like what I see. So I was like, I need help. I need to go somewhere and get clear minded and better. And then I need to get back into AA and actually do something different this time. And that started my journey to where I'm at now. Back last year in December, I went to a treatment facility known as Hazelden in Naples, Florida, and started my treatment process there. A, because I was tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and B, because I was about ready to run out of my medication and I knew that that would have just made things worse. So I got in there, took them about a week to get my medicine restarted. So I was, at least I was in a safe place, but I was suffering for a week of just dark, intrusive thoughts, feeling ashamed, guilty, wanting it all to end. And then, I successfully went through their program, completed it about in January. And by January 25th of this year, I had the option to go to a sober living uh, a good distance away. It was in Tampa, Florida, known as Real Recovery Solutions. And I went there because something about real recovery sparked in my mind. I was like, that sounds familiar. Do you guys have a location in Bradenton, Florida? Because I think I've been there before. And sorry if I'm kind of all over the place right now. It's my memory is very bad. So, but anyways, so I went to Real Recovery and it's been a great process since being here. I now have today I have 8 months clean. I've gone through the steps. I'm in the process of looking for someone to sponsor and take them through the steps to help them as well as help me. Um and things are really coming to fruition. Like, I don't want to brag about the promises, but when you really put in the work and you're really honest, like genuinely to the fullest, it's amazing what can start happening in your life. Like, now I have a court date finally to get off probation. I've successfully completed this program and am just living here now. I don't have to go to therapy all the time. I don't have to do classes. I've already completed those portions of the program. And now I kind of have to prepare myself for the next phase of my journey because it's not like I'm getting to a destination and it's all done and over with. I'm just preparing myself for the next phase of my journey. And it's a lot. Like, I'm like, wow, am I really going to be able to see my kids soon and like be in their lives again? Like, am I going to really be with my family again? Like, how is this all going to work? Because right now I'm used to being in a program, so I'm a little nervous to be let off the leash again, as I like to put it. But I know that things are different because I have resources that I didn't use in the past. Like I have a sponsor I can call, I have therapists I can call, I have friends I can call on. And that's one of the beauties of this program is growing up, I didn't have very many friends. So this program gave me something that I couldn't get on my own. And what a wondrous thing for this program. And I feel like I'm rambling at this point, so should I stop?
Yeah, I mean, you're fine, yeah, man. But um, let me see 1 second. So yeah, as far as everything goes, though, I mean, absolutely, 100%. I mean, this program has saved a whole ton of lives. I mean, without this, a lot of people wouldn't be where they're at today. And I fully 100% go by that just because it saved my life. Um, so if any of you guys are listening right now, and you do want to find a way of life that is somewhat manageable, please just look up, on your local app. There's apps out there. There's meeting lists. Just walk into there, and obviously, you might not like it at first, but it saves lives, and it has done it for a lot of different people. Uh, but yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you sharing your story. Hopefully that can help other people and other people who aren't really necessarily close to a meeting or necessarily still sober, kind of think their way around it. Um, but yeah, man, I definitely do appreciate you coming in and sharing your story and everything. So yeah,
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
appreciate it, man. Do you have anything else you wanna say before we head off?
Um, the only thing that I can say is just don't give up, because there was many a times that I thought giving up was the solution, and I'm glad I didn't.
Absolutely, man. But yeah, y'all. Thank you for the speaker. Thank you for Super Boo coming in. And I appreciate everyone who's on here listening right now. And if you do want to check out, this is like my first, I guess, episode. Just go in the link in the description. I do have a separate channel specifically for these podcasts. So if you guys do want to continue listening, I would highly suggest you go check that out. And thank you everyone who's joined with us today. Um, but yeah, other than that, I guess that's pretty much it. I will see you guys on the next one, and thank you so much, man, for coming out here and spreading the word of love.
Yeah, love, kindliness, patience, and tolerance.
Mm, absolutely. Well, alrighty, y'all. I will see you guys on the next episode of the Really Sober podcast. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. And if you are coming into the program and you are listening in, one day at a time. That's all it takes. Take care of yourselves, y'all. Later.